My daughter thinks she knows me. She sees the routines, the grocery lists, the clean countertops. She sees the carpool years, the PTA meetings, the birthday cakes shaped like cartoon animals. She sees the mother, the reliable one, the quiet one, the one who folded herself down so everyone else could expand. But she doesn't see me. I don't blame her. I've been invisible so long, sometimes even I forget I'm still here. Her name is Rachel. She's 27, brilliant, organized, beautiful. She lives in Chicago now, works in PR, wears tailored pants and heels even on Sundays. I raised her alone after the divorce. We've been through a lot: school transfers, financial dips, those awful adolescent years where every word felt like a landmine. Now we speak once a week, polite, catching up. She checks in to make sure I've paid the bills, taken my vitamins, fixed the leaky faucet. She loves me, I know that. But there's a tone in her voice, a practiced concern. Like she's parenting me now. The last time she visited, she hugged me in the driveway, tilted her head and said, "You look tired, Mom. Are you still wearing those old yoga pants in public?" I laughed, said something like, "They're just pants." But inside, something small curled up. That was 3 weeks ago. This story, what happened, took place the week after she left. It was a Wednesday, one of those days where the sky is all one color, and the silence in the house feels thicker than usual. I'd planned to repaint the small back room where I used to keep all of Rachel's old school things. A project day, something to fill the time. Around noon, I was in the garage digging through storage bins, looking for a tarp, when I heard a knock on the side door. Not the front, the side. The one only neighbors or delivery men ever use. I opened it slowly, paint cloth in hand, and found Devin standing there. He's the nephew of my neighbor, mid-30s maybe, bearded, hands always covered in some kind of dust woodworking. I think he'd been living with his aunt for a few months since his divorce. I'd seen him around, nodded hellos, nothing more. "Hey," he said, holding up a small wooden stool. "This yours?" I blinked. "The red one." He nodded. "Was halfway in your side yard this morning. Thought maybe the wind kicked it over the fence." I smiled, brushing my hair back with the back of my wrist. "It's mine. Must have rolled with the storm yesterday." He stepped forward, eyes scanning the garage. "You painting?" "Trying to," I said. "Can't find the tarp." He gestured behind me. "Is that it?" It was. I laughed, shaking my head. "Looks like it's not just my daughter who thinks I'm going blind." He smiled, but didn't laugh. "I could help, if you want," he offered, lifting the stool. "I've got a couple hours free." I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I was fine, that I had a system, that I didn't want company. But instead, I heard myself say, "Sure, if you don't mind getting some paint on your shoes." We moved the supplies into the back room, formerly Rachel's study space. Now just a cluttered shell with yellowing walls and peeling corners. Devin moved with quiet efficiency, laying down the tarp, stirring the paint, opening windows. I hadn't had someone move through my house like that in years. As we painted, we talked nothing deep at first. Weather, neighbors, the strange smell coming from Mrs. McClure's compost bin. He asked if Rachel lived nearby, and I told him she was in Chicago. He nodded, said he liked the city, but it always felt a little too clean. I laughed harder than I expected. At one point he reached for the roller, and his arm brushed mine. I didn't flinch, neither did he. We just kept going, and then came the moment I'll never forget. I was standing on the stool, my old red one, trying to reach a stubborn patch of wall near the ceiling. The brush wasn't cooperating. I was swearing under my breath, stretching too far. Devin stepped behind me, steadying the stool with one hand and gently placing his other hand just above my knee. "Careful," he said, voice low. "You fall." "I'm not letting you sue me." I froze. His hand wasn't heavy, it wasn't invasive, just ... there. Warm, protective. I climbed down slowly, heart thudding harder than I wanted to admit. When I turned to face him, I expected some kind of awkward apology or joke. Instead, he said, "You're more than people give you credit for." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "Your daughter, the neighbors, everyone acts like you're just this kind, quiet lady with perfect cookies. But you've got something. Fire, maybe. I don't know." I stared at him. That's when I realized he sees me. Not the mom, not the neighbor, not the polite older woman in line at the co-op. Me. And suddenly, the room felt different. I didn't know what to say. Not because I was offended, but because I wasn't used to someone noticing. He looked at me with this quiet certainty, like he hadn't said anything bold at all, like he was just stating a fact. I felt exposed, not in a way that made me retreat, but in a way that made me pause. I turned back to the wall, dipped the roller into the tray. My hand shook slightly. I hoped he didn't see me painted in silence after that. Not uncomfortable just ... charged. Every breath felt heavier. Every small sound seemed amplified. The roll of paint against the wall, the soft creak of the floorboards, the occasional clink of his brush against the metal tray. He didn't try to talk over it. He let the silence exist between us, and for some reason, I respected that. After a while, I stepped back, wiping my hands on a rag. That's probably enough for today. He nodded, checking his watch. Yeah, you'll want to air it out overnight anyway. We moved the supplies back to the garage. The air was cooler now. The afternoon light stretched long shadows across the driveway, soft and golden. I reached into the fridge and grabbed 2 bottles of iced tea, handed him one. We sat on the porch steps, shoulder to shoulder but not touching. You ever feel like you blinked and the whole world moved on without you? I asked. Devon took a sip, then rested the bottle between his knees. Every damn day. I laughed, surprised. You don't look old enough to say that. He glanced at me, serious. Age doesn't matter when it comes to feeling stuck or left behind. I looked down at my hands, lined, slightly stained with dried paint. I used to feel necessary, like there was always something urgent to do. Now I just ... fill hours. He turned slightly. Maybe you've just never been given space to ask what you want. I met his eyes. They weren't flirtatious. They weren't pitying. They were steady, and kind. It was a kind I hadn't seen in a long, long time. We didn't say much more after that. He stood, thanked me for the tea, and said he'd check on the paint in the morning. I nodded. I didn't offer more, didn't ask him to stay, but something in me wanted to. When I went back inside, I found myself standing in front of the hallway mirror, noticing things, the tired eyes, yes, but also the strength in my arms from carrying years alone, the softness in my shoulders, the woman I was underneath all the layers of caretaking and self-doubt. That night, I didn't turn on the TV. I sat at the kitchen table with a candle and a glass of wine, thinking about how long it had been since someone looked at me like that, and how long it had been since I allowed myself to feel it. The next morning, I woke up early. I pulled on jeans and a fresh t-shirt, brushed my hair and tied it up loosely. I wasn't dressing for him. I told myself that out loud. But something inside me wanted to feel ... ready. Devon showed up at 9:15, toolbox in hand. I figured I'd fix that loose hinge on the closet door, he said, the one that kept groaning every time you walked by. I hadn't told him about that. He noticed. We spent most of the morning quietly working in the house. Every so often, our hands brushed as we passed tools or paint cloths. Each time, I felt a small flutter low in my chest. It wasn't teenage excitement. It wasn't a crush. It was ... awareness ... a slow awakening ... When lunchtime came, I offered sandwiches and we sat in the sunroom, something I rarely used. It felt brighter than usual. He told me more about his marriage, how it ended quietly, how the silence between him and his ex had stretched so long. One day, they both stopped trying. It's terrifying how quickly you can disappear in someone's life, he said, even when you live in the same house. I nodded. I used to lie awake next to someone who didn't touch me for months. He didn't respond with shock or pity. He just listened. After we finished eating, I stood to take the plates. As I walked past, he touched my wrist, lightly. You don't have to carry everything. I froze. I didn't pull away. Instead, I let the moment hold, let his words settle inside me. I looked down at his hand on mine, his thumb gently brushing the inside of my wrist. My voice came out quiet. What do you see when you look at me? He tilted his head, not smiling. Someone who's more than what she was told she's allowed to be. I couldn't breathe. For a second, not because I didn't believe him, but because a part of me did. He didn't kiss me. He didn't move closer. He just let his hand stay where it was. And I let it. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like just a mom. I felt like a woman. The next few days unfolded like a film in slow motion, full of quiet gestures, half-finished sentences, glances that lingered too long. Devon kept showing up, sometimes with excuses, tools in hand, offers to help rearrange the garage shelves, check the AC unit, touch up the edges we missed in the back room. But other times, he'd just pass by while I was tending the small flower beds and stop to talk. Sometimes we didn't even mention the projects. We just were. And each time he left, I felt like something inside me stayed warmer a little longer. I didn't tell Rachel. Not because I was hiding something, though maybe I was, but because I already knew what her reaction would be. She'd laugh it off, gently. Maybe make a comment about midlife thirst traps, or ask if I was lonely again. That's the thing. When your own child only sees you through the lens of caretaker, they forget you were ever anything else. A woman with hunger, with opinions, with softness that had nothing to do with baking banana bread or folding laundry. But Devon saw it. That weekend, on a late Saturday afternoon, I invited him in for coffee, not as a favor, not as a transaction, just because I wanted him there. He sat at my kitchen table like he belonged there. We talked about music, about songs we both loved in high school. We argued about Fleetwood Mac. He asked me what I used to dream about before life became about someone else. I told him the truth, that I wanted to write, that I'd once started a novel and never finished it, that I used to journal every night until Rachel was born and the silence became too loud. He listened like it mattered. Then he leaned forward and asked, "Do you still write in your head?" The question cracked something open in me. I blinked back sudden tears. "Yes," I whispered, "but I never get it out." "You should," he said. "You have a lot to say." There it was again, that startling, almost uncomfortable feeling of being seen, of being pulled back into myself, like my bones were remembering who I used to be. I stood to pour another cup of coffee, but my hands shook just enough to spill a few drops. Devon was behind me in seconds. He reached for the mug, set it down, and turned me gently to face him. His hands rested on my arms, light but firm. "I don't want to cross any lines," he said, "but I also don't want to pretend I don't feel something when I'm around you." I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry, my heart was loud in my chest. "I don't know what this is," I said honestly. "Me neither," he replied, "but it doesn't feel wrong." He didn't lean in right away. He waited, his eyes on mine, searching for permission. So I gave it. I lifted my hand and touched the side of his face, and that was all it took. He kissed me slowly, gently, not like someone rushing, not like someone taking, but like someone who'd been waiting to offer. When we pulled apart, I didn't speak. I just looked at him and felt my body buzzing, not with shame, not with guilt, but with a strange kind of peace. "I should go," he said quietly, like he didn't want to. I nodded. "Will you let me see you again?" he asked. "I think I'd like that," I said. He smiled, touched my hand one last time, and left. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was confused, but because for the first time in years, my body remembered what it meant to feel. Not just desire, but presence, ownership, fullness. And not for anyone else. For me. The following morning, I stood by the kitchen sink, sunlight falling across the floor like a spotlight. The air smelled like fresh coffee and cut lemon familiar, but everything else felt different. I didn't rush through the day. I moved slower, chose my clothes more deliberately, wrote 3 paragraphs in a notebook I hadn't touched in over a decade. Every gesture felt intentional. That afternoon, Rachel called. "Hey Mom, just checking in. How's the house project coming?" I hesitated. "It's going well. Got some help?" She laughed. "You finally hired someone?" "Not quite," I said. "Just a neighbor offering to pitch in." There was a pause. I could hear the wheels turning. "You mean that guy from next door, Devon?" "Yes." Another pause, longer this time. "Well, just be careful, okay?" Her voice shifted, not worried, guarded. "I am," I said gently. "I know what I'm doing." She changed the subject quickly after that, asked about groceries. My sleeping patterns. If I'd seen the latest crime documentary she'd sent. We ended the call with the usual, "Love you." But her words stayed with me. Be careful. I knew what she meant. I wasn't supposed to step outside the script. I was supposed to be safe, predictable, comfortably retired from anything complicated, but I was done being predictable. That evening, Devon came by again, not with tools or errands, just with himself. He brought fresh strawberries and chocolate. "Felt like you might have had a long day," he said with a smirk. We didn't do anything dramatic. We sat outside, shared fruit and silence, laughed about bad paint jobs and terrible coffee. Then, as the sun dipped low, I turned to him and said, "You make me feel like a version of myself I thought I'd buried." He didn't answer with words. He just reached over, took my hand, and kissed my knuckles one by one. No one had ever done that for me before, not even my ex-husband. Something about that kiss, the care of it, made my eyes sting. I blinked fast. Devon saw, but he didn't ask. He just moved closer, placed a hand on my back, and let me exhale against his shoulder. No pressure, no expectation, just presence. That night we sat together in the living room, the soft hum of a vinyl record in the background. No one else in the world knew what was happening between us. No one needed to, because it wasn't about them. It was about me. Remembering how to breathe in my own skin, remembering I wasn't just a mom. I was someone's first glance again, someone's warm laugh, someone's surprise. The days that followed moved in a quiet rhythm. No declarations, no big decisions, just presence. Devon didn't overwhelm my space, he respected it. He'd pass by some days just to ask if I needed anything. Other times, he'd stay long enough to talk about something that had happened in his day, or ask what I was reading, or bring over a recipe he thought I might like. I didn't introduce him to Rachel. I didn't need to. Not yet. This wasn't about building a future together, or labeling anything. This was about now. About reclaiming a part of myself that had gone dormant for too long. One night, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. Really looked. There were fine lines I used to hide, softness in places I used to critique. But now, all I could see was a woman who had returned to herself. I didn't need to be 20 again. I didn't need approval. I needed truth. And what Devon and I shared, Devon, in its quiet uncertainty, was truth. A few weeks later, Rachel came to visit again. She brought wine and her usual air of competence, her voice brisk and efficient as she unpacked a tote full of frozen soups and vitamins. She insisted I try. We sat on the porch. The silence between us was different, this time loaded. Maybe I was just more attuned. She finally said, "I've noticed you seem different." I sipped my tea. "Is that a good thing?" "I don't know," she said. "You're dressing nicer. Your hair looks done. There's a glow or something." I smiled softly. "Maybe I just started seeing myself again." She hesitated. "Is this about that guy, Devon?" I didn't flinch. "It's about me," I said calmly. "But yes, he helped me remember there's more to me than what people expect." Rachel looked away, her voice lowered. "It's just hard to picture you with someone, not because I don't want you to be happy, but because I've only ever known you as mine." That hit harder than I expected. I reached across the table and took her hand. "You'll always be my daughter," I said. "But I was a woman before I was a mother, and I still am." She didn't speak right away, but after a while, she nodded. "I think I'm still learning how to let you be more than just my mom," she admitted. I squeezed her hand. "That makes two of us." When she left the next day, she hugged me tighter than usual. No warnings, no passive-aggressive jokes, just warmth. That afternoon, I walked into the garage. The room was still neatly arranged, boxers labeled, corners swept. But the air in there carried something new now, something soft and alive. This place had become the space where I woke up, where I shed the weight of other people's expectations and stepped, quietly and fully, into my own skin again. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that you're never just a mom. You're never just anything. You are layered, wild, tired, still reaching, alive, and you're allowed to be all of it, Tess. Especially when no one sees it coming. That afternoon, with Devon, that was the first time in years I let someone see me without shrinking. And once that door opened, no matter what came after, I never closed it again.